This is Research Like a Pro, episode 64, Finding Jeanie's Father with DNA Case Study, interview with Hazel Scullin. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, a Genealogist's Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Nicole Dyer, co-host of the Research Like a Pro genealogy podcast. Today, I'm here with my mother-accredited genealogist, Diana Elder, and our guest, Hazel Scullin. Hello.
Oh.
Hi, Nicole. Today, we are going to talk with Hazel about her case study with using DNA to find her grandmother, Jeanie's father.
So I'm going to start off with just getting to know Hazel a little bit. We've been working with her for several months, but I still have some questions for you, Hazel, for all of our listeners so they can get to know you. We met Hazel at Roots Tech this last year, 2019, and she was a fellow ambassador, and I believe Nicole started chatting with her and found out she needed an internship for the summer, and we were so pleased to have her choose Family Locket to do an internship with, and I've had a lot of fun working with her on projects, and she's done some great blog posts, which we are going to talk about today, one of her case studies. But first, let's just find out a little bit more about you, Hazel. So how did you get interested in genealogy?
So I've loved local and family history for as long as I can remember. I grew up in California, really close to where gold was discovered. So local history was always a huge part of my life, really fascinating to me. And then I started seriously doing genealogy research about 4 years ago when I joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, great. So with the church's emphasis on genealogy, that really kind of spurred you on. That's neat. So what is your background in genealogy? Because I know that you have got an actual degree in that. So tell us a little bit about that.
I began the family history program at BYU in June 2016. I had been at BYU for one semester before that, and I was just general major, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had started doing more genealogy research, and I thought it was fascinating. I was staying up all night doing it. And then I was looking at the list of majors at BYU, and I saw that they had a family history major. And I thought, well, that sounds really fun. And I had no idea what it would have in store for me. I just felt like this is something I love to do. Why not go in and see how it goes? So I haven't been doing genealogy for very long. There are some people who, have been doing it for 30, 40 years, or people my age who have been doing it since they were like a kid. But I think that I've gained a lot of valuable experience in a short amount of time because of how concentrated and immersive the BYU program is.
I think that's so true because I do hear that a lot with people that we work with, that they've been doing it for 40 years or, for their whole life. But you can just gain your skills incredibly by immersing yourself in it. And that's how I felt like with accreditation. Those 2 years were worth more than the entire 14 years before that I'd been doing family history and genealogy. So I totally get where you're coming from on that. So tell us a little bit more about what the BYU Family History major is comprised of, because I'm sure our listeners are curious what a real college major entails when you are doing a genealogy focus.
So we were required to take courses in paleography, general history, methodology, and technology. A lot of the classes are divided by geographical region or language, such as Scandinavian research or German paleography. There's also 3 U.S. classes. We have the northern U.S. states, southern U.S. states, and colonial. And some of the technology classes that are offered are genetic genealogy, digital history, and technology and family history. And for general history classes, there's U.S. history, there's region or subject-based history classes. One of the classes that I took was U.S. women's history. There was also a history of the American family, There's history of the European family. So there's lots of different options to choose from. And a lot of people also choose to do a minor. I didn't choose to do a minor, but sometimes people will do a minor in a foreign language if they're particularly interested in researching in that area. I have a friend who is an anthropology major. So there's lots of ways that you can go with it.
I love that they have a genetic genealogy class now, which I believe is the project that you are going to share with us today in your case study, right? Is that where you did the DNA project?
Yes.
Tell us about the requirement for an internship.
Every student is required to complete an internship, and it can be in Utah, it can be out of Utah. You can do anything, really. So my internship, of course, was with Family Locket, and I've had friends that went to countries in Europe for the whole summer, weeks on end. They go to libraries and repositories out there doing research. Lots of people in Utah will go up to the church history library or family search. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn outside of the classroom. In addition to the internship, there's work opportunities like working at the BYU library or working as a research assistant or a teaching assistant. There's opportunities to attend national conferences. So there's so much to do outside of the classroom. There's also a BYU Family History Club. I think that the BYU Family History major is so much more than just the classroom setting. It's a true immersive experience in genealogy.
I love that the professors and the developers of the program have recognized the need for that. And I am just so curious. So I know we've talked a little bit about this before, but, coming on as an intern for us, and I just gave you hard projects. And you had a variety of different types of localities and types of projects. And how was that different from just being given a client project to work on from maybe an assignment in a class?
The biggest difference that I felt was that I was not researching my own family, and I couldn't control what kind of background information was given to me on the family because it was a client project and we were just starting with what they had for us.
And sometimes there was a lot you had to wade through, and sometimes there was just very little.
Yeah.
And you're working under a time frame, so of course that's different too.
Yeah, our projects at BYU, they're typically, we have a 50 to 60 hour project for each class that we work on, and there's no time limit. So we have to do a minimum of 50 or 60 hours, but we can do more than that if we want. But with client research, none of the projects that I worked on were 50 or 60 hours.
Well, I loved working with you, and we had, if I remember right, a couple of those projects, a major breakthrough for the client. So that was really fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you're doing now that you're all graduated, full-fledged holder of the BYU certificate or whatever it is. What do they call it? Just a degree?
Bachelor's degree. Only university in North America with a bachelor's degree.
Family history. That's awesome.
Yes.
So what are you doing now?
Now I'm working as a probate researcher at the American Research Bureau in Salt Lake City. If you're curious about what they do, you can check out their website, arb.com. I'm also going to be a Roots Tech ambassador for the second time this year, so I'm really excited to be doing that. And I'm preparing for certification, so I'm taking some private clients to continue to work on my research and report writing skills.
That's so great. Hooray for becoming a certified genealogist. Hopefully we can both get there soon.
Yes.
Why don't we talk now about your case study with finding Jeannie's father? You've written a wonderful series for our blog about this, and so we're just going to kind of talk about each of the steps that you outlined in your blog series. In the very first part of your series, you talked about kind of figuring out who should take a DNA test to help you with your objectives. So tell us about why you chose the project and what your research objective was.
So I chose this project because my family has always wondered who my grandma's father was. She passed away in 2003, and I think we've wanted to complete her family tree for her. When I enrolled in the genetic genealogy class, I just knew that this had to be my project. It was an obvious choice. And so my research objective was to locate the biological father of Jeanie Maleski through autosomal DNA testing. Jeanie was born on January 6, 1943 in Salt Lake City. Her biological mother, Lois Lee, was from San Diego.
So you had a very specific question. It wasn't to find the parents. You already knew the mother, so you just were honing in on her father.
Correct.
So then who did you decide to have take a DNA test?
I tested myself and my mother, but since my mother has a closer genetic relationship to my grandmother, obviously, I used her results for the research. You want to try and test the closest person to who your question is about. If I had an unrestrained financial budget, though, I would have also liked to test my mom's sister.
Of course. And were those the only two children of Jeanie?
Yes.
Cool. And did Jeanie have siblings that were from the same parents, or was she the only one?
So on her mother's side, we knew about two children, two half siblings, but only one of them we're still in contact with.
So working with your mom's DNA results, that is how you solved this case.
Yes.
When you first got your results back, you're looking at your matches on Ancestry, and you have to somehow figure out how to organize them. So what did you do? Walk us through your process.
So I used the shared matches feature on Ancestry to separate my matches into clusters. Ancestry has a cool feature where you can assign colors to make groups for your matches. I noticed in my results that there was one person that I could recognize. I know that that person is from this line. So then you can assign colors going from there. And then I got to a cluster of people left over that I didn't know where they fit in. And by process of elimination, I knew that I had someone from every other line of my family, so I knew that that line had to come from my grandma's paternal side.
Aha. So did you assign them a special color, all of those matches?
I gave them the star, actually.
They were the ones you were interested in.
Yes.
They were your subjects. What did you notice about the amount of centiMorgans shared with your matches?
So I just looked last night, and I don't remember exactly how many were there at the time that I did this, but there were matches in the 300s, one in the mid 200s, and several in the 100s. And I was really excited to see that since those are close matches when working on an adoptee project. High 300s is a really good match.
That is really exciting because if they had been smaller matches, you would have had a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I would have to be looking for someone's, maybe their second great-grandparents, but when it's 300s, I knew that I was looking for people in the grandparent to great-grandparent level.
So exciting. And that's one of the great things about Ancestry DNA with so many people testing. We are getting more and more of those higher matches.
Yes.
So anyone listening who is working on an adoptee project, make sure your subjects have tested on Ancestry because that's the place to be for sure.
That's the one that I recommend to anyone who asks me, what DNA test should I take? And if they say that they're looking for biological family members, I tell them to test on Ancestry first.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
So after you had found these closer cousin matches, how did you reach out to them? Did you just send them a message, or what was your method?
Yeah, I just messaged them on Ancestry, and I think it's really important to be honest up front about what you're doing and to not kind of skirt around it. I think that some people might disclose certain details depending on what you say that you're researching. So I wanted to tell them up front that I was searching for my grandma's biological father, and I gave her birth date and her mother's name, just like I stated in my research objective at the beginning of the episode. And I think it's important to be brief in your first message. You don't know how much genealogical knowledge your match has. They may be an expert genealogist, or they may really know nothing. So you want to avoid using a lot of complex genealogical terms that they may not understand. So you need to find a balance between overwhelming the match with information and being too vague and not giving them enough to go off of.
That's a good point. I think there's so many different ways that you can strike up a conversation with a match and hope that eventually you'll get to the answer that you're hoping for. I like your idea to just tell them up front what you're looking for so that they don't feel like they might disclose something that they didn't want to or whatnot. How many responses did you get? Did a lot of people respond back?
Yeah, I think that I got a response from everyone, but they didn't have any information that was helpful. but I knew that they would be there in the future if I had more information that I could tell them or more questions that I could ask. They just said that they didn't know anybody in their family tree. I was specifically looking if they had someone in their family tree who had been in San Diego before my grandma was born, and they didn't know of anyone. So I thank them for their help, but sometimes you don't get responses back, and that's okay. You just have to be patient. Sometimes people, they're not interested in helping you, and that's okay.
For sure. We just have to be patient. I've heard of responses coming a year later or even longer. What did you discover after you created a tree with all these DNA matches and clusters and things like that?
So I made the private tree on Ancestry, and I found which ancestral couple the matches all had in common, which was really, really exciting. This couple had 6 sons, and all were within the age range to be my grandma's father. Their surname was Hubbard, and so I knew that one of those sons in the family had to be my grandma's father.
Hooray. So great. And with 6 sons, there's a lot of candidates.
Yeah, there were.
That maybe would seem frustrating. Which one is it?
Yeah, it was a little bit daunting. I think you have to have a lot of patience when doing this research because you never know. There could just be one son, and then there's your answer, or there could be 10 even.
For sure.
I love that there were 6 sons. That's so funny. I was doing my sister's adoptee case, and her shared ancestors had 13 children.
Oh my goodness.
And there were so many descendants. Luckily, we found somebody that knew more and helped us a lot, so I didn't have to wade through all of that. So I can feel your pain with 6 sons. So what did you decide to do? Because you had no idea which of these sons could have been her father. So kind of what was your approach then?
So I wanted to track the family, do a census survey. That's usually the first thing that I do. And I was really looking for anyone who maybe moved to San Diego or lived in San Diego. I didn't find anything with that. They all stayed on the east. But I did find that there was one son who passed away in 1935. And so I knew, couldn't be my grandma's father. So that was really helpful to research the descendants because people may become eliminated as candidates as you do research. For example, a death or maybe a move to another country or something like that, then you would be able to eliminate that candidate or put them on a lower priority.
And you also had some clues from what the family knew a little bit, right? You knew that we had a locality of San Diego, and you had the clue that the father was a member of the military.
Yeah, the member of the military, that was more of a hunch just based on the time period, but that did end up proving true. So trust your hunches, I guess.
What year was she born again?
1943.
Yeah, 1943. So we would all logically think, okay,
Yeah.
he's going to be in World War II. So that makes total sense.
Yes, it does. That's why I think it's so important to understand the history of the time that you're researching. And that's something that's really emphasized in the BYU program. And I think that I was trained really well to look at what's going on during the time period.
That's great. Yeah, that is absolutely key. You mentioned that you use the fan club, the friends, associates, and neighbors for this. So how did that kind of work into this case?
Early on in my research, I looked into who was living around Jeannie's mother and Jeannie's adopted mother for clues. Jeannie's adopted mother actually was a good friend of her biological mother, so they really fit into the same circle. So when you're researching adoptees, it's important to build a fan club since there's often overlap between the biological family members and the adopted family members. So I talked with my great aunt, so my grandma's sister that we're still in contact with, to figure out if she had any information. And she had a theory about someone who lived near the family at the time, that he may be the father. But once we started doing the DNA research, the Hubbard family came up a lot, and this other family didn't. And the book Finding Family by Richard Hill has a lot of great examples of using the fan club in adoptee research. So I'd recommend for anyone interested in adoptee research to check that out because it really gives a lot of examples of what the fan club can do for your genetic research.
Oh, that's so interesting. I don't think I've read that one yet, so I'll have to put that on my list of to reads. Because I'm always looking for more ideas on methodology for using DNA and adoptee research. So that's great. So how did you end up eliminating the various candidates? Because you eliminated one because he had died in the 1930s. What about the rest?
So I used the shared centiMorgan project to eliminate one of the matches because one of the matches was actually a daughter of one of the 6 sons. So that would make her my mom's half aunt. So I compared the centiMorgans that they shared to the estimates for a half-aunt relationship, and it was much too small. So I thought that's not really likely because it's such a small amount of centiMorgans. So that's where you see combining the traditional research and the DNA research is really important. Like I was able to eliminate 2, but if I had only done traditional research, I would have only eliminated 1. So you really need to combine both types of research.
Oh, that's such a good example. And I love that you talked about that shared centiMorgan project because that's so helpful when you are charting it out and trying to compare and see if the matches make sense. That's an essential part of any kind of a DNA project.
That's exactly what I've been doing with the case that I'm working on right now of unknown parentage. I found 6 children who all have really close, their lines have close matches to the subject, and only 2 of the 6 children have no matches descended from them. And those are the 2 candidates that it has to be for the father or mother because the other ones don't share enough centimorgans to be that close. So it's interesting how you can eliminate them based on how close of a match it is. All right, let's ask you, Hazel, which DNA databases did you end up using? You mentioned Ancestry. Did you transfer at all?
Yes, I started on Ancestry and then I uploaded my results to MyHeritage, Living DNA, Family Tree DNA, and GEDmatch. But there weren't any strong matches with ties to the Hubbard family. So I decided to hold off on asking my mom's permission to upload her results to those sites. I just didn't think it was necessary at that point when the primary project I was focused on with my mom's research was the Hubbard family. So I just kept my results on there though because I was working on projects on other lines on my dad's side.
So did having multiple databases help at all?
Yes, so you'll never know who will be in which databases. Sometimes a bunch of family members all decide to test together in one database. Maybe a mother gets all of her family members, I don't know, ancestry tests. So then that entire family is all in one database. So you never know. And the match that confirmed for me which son was in Jeannie's father ended up being in 23andMe. I had kind of reached a stopping point in my ancestry results. I didn't want to ask to find any other members of the Hubbard family and ask them to take a test. That is something that you could do, but I didn't really feel that I wanted to do that at that point. So I decided to take a test with 23andMe to see if there were any other matches. And the match that I found in 23andMe, I still remember he was the 3rd closest match after my father and my grandfather, who were both in 23andMe. And he had the highest number of centiMorgans for any of the matches. And his surname was also Hubbard, so I knew that he was tied to the family. And he knew that his grandpa Don was one of the 6 sons in the Hubbard family. So then I thought, okay, if Don was Jeannie's father, then that would make us first cousins once removed. And the amount of centiMorgans that we shared was well within the estimates for that relationship. So that's again, where the shared centiMorgan project was really helpful. And then I continued to talk with the family about it, and they told me that Don was a soldier in the Marines, and he was stationed in San Diego the year before my grandma was born. So he was in the right place at the right time, and the centiMorgans I shared with that match confirmed that this was the right son.
Wow, that's so amazing.
Yes. I would recommend being in as many databases as you can. You just never know what will come up.
I love that. That is so true because when I was working on my sister's adoptee case, she had tested in Ancestry and we just weren't getting that close. But then she did the test on 23andMe and her half sister was on that database. So yeah, absolutely. You just never know. So great example. Wasn't that so fun that it all came together for you?
Yeah, it was really exciting. I talked to the professor and I said, okay, I'm at this point where I have these 6 sons. I've been able to eliminate a couple of them, but I'm still not sure. And she said, well, I think that you had a very ambitious goal for your project, and what you've done well exceeds the expectations for this assignment. So don't worry about finding the exact family member. You were only required to test in one database for this class, but I really wanted to solve it, so I did go, I guess, above and beyond for the project to solve it, and it paid off.
Well, it was your family too. It's one of your lines, and so now you have this biological line that you can trace and connect. So my next question is, now that you've found these people, did you try to connect with the biological family?
Yeah, we connected through Facebook. That's how I originally came in contact with the match, is he messaged me on Facebook. It was so funny. He said, "Hey, are you the Hazel Scullin in 23andMe?" And I was so excited because I guess he got an email saying that he had a new close match in 23andMe. And he told me that I'm actually his closest match in 23andMe. And he didn't recognize my name, so he was just curious. He's not a genealogist, but he was curious about who I was. So I connected with all the family on Facebook, and most of them live in Florida and the northern U.S. states. So we couldn't meet in person since we were far away from each other. But when I went to the Federation of Genealogical Societies conference last month in Washington, D.C., I got to meet one of my grandma's brothers, Ralph, and he lives in Virginia.
Oh, my word. So this would be a half-brother, right?
Yes. So he's my half-great uncle.
So they share the same father.
Yes.
Oh, that is so neat. And how did that go?
Yeah, it was so special. I think that getting to meet the biological family is the icing on the cake for anyone working on adoptee projects. Something that made the experience even more special was that we got to go to the U.S. Marine Corps War Memorial in Arlington, Virginia, and Ralph explained to me that Don fought in the Battle of Iwo Jima and was present on the day that the flag was raised. So meeting Ralph and learning Don's connection to the Marine Corps Memorial was one of the highlights of the entire trip.
Wow. That is so neat that you have this. Let's see, would he be your great-grandfather?
Yes.
That's wonderful. And that you got to go to the memorial in Arlington. Did Ralph grow up with Don as his father? I mean, he knew him well?
Yeah, so he got to tell me a lot of stories about Don, and Don sadly passed away when he was younger, so Ralph was, I think, maybe 18 or 20 when Don passed away, but he still was able to share a lot of stories with me, and I'm planning to go out to see him with my mom and hopefully her sister and my husband to meet him. He said he'd dig up some family memorabilia for me. I thought that was cute.
Oh, did you get to see pictures?
Yeah, we had seen some pictures, and that was another one of the fun things that kind of confirmed that I had the right family, because one of Don's other children looks just like my mom's sister. They could be twins. It's so funny.
Oh, wow. What a great ending. So what advice would you give someone on a similar journey?
Be patient and don't give up. Many people are taking DNA tests every week. It seems like you're waiting for an eternity, but I mean, even just in the time that I had worked on this project, more people on the Hubbard lines were entering the database almost every month.
I think that's great advice. Well, Hazel, it's been such a pleasure talking with you and working with you. Let me just ask a quick question, which we don't really have here on our outline, but tell us just a little bit about your experience at FGS, the Federation for Genealogical Societies.
Yes, it was a great conference. Like I mentioned, the BYU program offers a lot of opportunities to learn outside the classroom. So I went with 14 other students to Washington, D.C. And let me tell you, we looked so silly, I think, walking around Washington, D.C., the big group of us. But it was so great to go with other students, and we got to research in the National Archives, the Daughters of the American Revolution Library, and the Library of Congress, and in addition to attending the conference. So we were there for almost 2 weeks, and the conference was great, lots of good classes, and just, I love the spirit of history that is in Washington, D.C. It's inspiring.
Wow, that's really neat. I have to say I'm a little envious that you were able to do this degree. I don't think they had it when I was at BYU, and it sounds like it would just have been wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. And one question that a lot of people ask me is, are there jobs in family history? And the answer is yes. There are a lot of jobs in family history, and it's more than just doing private client research. There's lots of jobs in technology and family history, working at Ancestry or Family Search, and this is a booming field, especially with genetics coming into play. And so quite a few people at BYU actually do a genetics minor or major in addition to family history. Paul Woodbury, for example, he was a genetics major and a family history minor, and he's now one of the most successful genetic genealogists in the world, I think.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for being on this episode and telling us all about your case study. I think everyone listening is going to really enjoy hearing about how a young genealogist solved an adoptee case.
Oh, that's so true. I think myself just listening to you gave me so many ideas for what to work on next with the different cases that I have right now of unknown parentage. It's just so helpful to hear how somebody solved a case and all the little pieces that came together to make it possible. And I'm just realizing I need to have one of my clients take a test at 23andMe. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. And we're so glad that you're working at a wonderful job and having success in your family history career. And we're so excited to see where you go and to see you at Roots Tech.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.